What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jay Goday, aka Jay the Developer, and we back at it again with the real in you and the real in real estate. Alright, y'all, what's good? So today we're talking about two methods you can use when investing in real estate. One is called the BRRRR Method, BRRRR, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Then you have your traditional way of purchasing, which is you get pre-approved through a bank, traditional financing. You get your pre-approval letter, you go through the process of finding a property, and you go through that whole step-by-step process, and then you close. So we're going to talk about the difference between the two, okay? So let's start with the BRRRR Method. Again, it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. I love this strategy. This strategy is the best way to build a real estate portfolio. So if you're looking at the long game, you're looking to build your net worth, you're looking to retire to real estate, this is a great way. This is a great method to use. So the thing about the BRRRR Method is different than the traditional way of purchasing real estate. This method requires you to have a little bit more capital on hand. And this is the thing, that capital can come from anywhere. That capital can come from a gift of equity, it can come from your family, come from your friends. You could have sold a car, you could have had a home and sold that, but however you have achieved that working capital, this method does take a little bit more money up front than your traditional ways of purchasing. So just say hypothetically, you have a few $1,000s. So you'll purchase a piece of property that will be considered dilapidated or distressed. So that basically means that this is an off-market piece of property. Usually, most of the time, it will be an off-market piece of property. So a key thing in the BRRRR Method is knowing how to find deals, knowing how to find off-market property, and then assessing those properties and knowing how much money you're going to need to rehab it, how much the rents are going for in that area, and even the understanding of the refinance part, to even know how much money you're going to be able to get when you refinance after you have after you bought it, rented it out, and rehabbed it. So it's definitely some things that you need to understand in the BRRRR Method before you kind of get some traction going with that strategy. I don't usually recommend people start using BRRRR until they have received some type of consulting or some type of coaching, or have educated themselves on exactly how to use that method. But once you get the formula down, once you learn, it's all she wrote after that. So first thing using BRRRR is deal sourcing, knowing how to find a deal, knowing how to find a good property that's going to give you a good return. So typically, like I said, you'll have some cash on hand with this particular method already. You'll find your property, you'll do an assessment on the property. First, you'll figure out how much it's going to take for you to renovate this property. So whatever that cost may be, if it's 60 grand, 70 grand, 80 grand, you've already factored in the fact that, all right, I got to spend $70,000 renovating this property. And then you've already understood how much you're going to be to charge to rent these units out, no matter how many units it is. If it's a single family home, if it's a duplex, fourplex, quadplex, whatever the case may be, you already understand how much you'll be able to make on rent rolls and renting this property out. So once you figure those things out, now you kind of have an idea on what some of your upfront costs is going to be. This gives you the leverage to know how you can go in and negotiate what you should purchase for this property. So, and it's a formula. This is what's called your ARV, your after after this is what you call your ARV. Okay, so you using that formula, you'll figure out how much you need to purchase this property for. And this is a strict formula because the key thing in real estate investment when you're using these formulas is that you don't want to stray away from this. You don't want to bend. You don't want to say, well, you know, I really like this property, so I'm gonna just kind of, I'll relax with the formula. I'll relax with the numbers a little bit. Negative. You don't want to do that. You have to be able to walk away from a property if the numbers do not fit your criteria. And sometimes that's hard, especially when you're just starting, because you're like, man, I really like this property. But you got to understand, when you're investing in real estate, you're not buying. You're not falling in love with the structure. Fall in love with the numbers. If the numbers make sense, then the deal makes sense. That's all you got to care about. If the numbers make sense, the deal makes sense. So when you're doing your analysis, these are the things that you're factoring in to determine how much I want to offer on this property. Where should I start my negotiations? So the key is to buy as cheaply as possible. So that way, once you buy and you've done your rehab and you've done your renovations, you've already gone into this deal with some equity. Okay, so the key in BRRRR is you make your money going into the deal, not on the back end. So when you go and purchase this property, you've already, once it's purchased, once it's rehab, you already have some cushion within the equity as far as the equity that you're going to have. So you may have, just say after that you spent $100,000 on this property, you bought it, you renovated it, you spent $100,000 total, but it's actually worth, 170. So you bought it, you renovated it, now you're renting it out. It's bringing you money. It's bringing you a return at this point. Now you're looking to refinance. So when you're looking at refinancing, and we're using creative financing strategy. So we're not just going through traditional finance. We're not just going through your banks. We're going through lending institutions that cater to real estate investors. So we're going to the lending institutions that will not, when you're doing this refinance, you're going to get a lump sum of money of the value of the equity that you have into this property. So if you have, let's say if you got $60,000 in equity, you're gonna get 80% of that loan to value rate of the equity that you have in that property. Now, this is the key. Once you've done this whole process. Let's just say this process has taken you, 6 months. That you purchased this property, you've rehabbed it, then you rented it out, then you refinance. So you already did those steps. The next thing is to repeat. So the equity that once you refinance it, you didn't pull out your equity. So you're getting your $60,000. You get your $60,000 cash. You're taking that $60,000 and you're repeating the process. And that is how you build wealth, strategic wealth, building your real estate portfolio using the Verb Method, and do it over and over and over again. All right, so we talked about BRRRR. Let's talk about traditional. Now, traditional is a little bit less aggressive, and typically those who don't have as much cash on hand and they want to step into the real estate investment game a little bit slower. This is typically the route that I usually advise, and especially this is your first time. Now, I usually advise my first-time home buyers to go this route, mainly because sometimes they don't have a lot of capital saved, and they're already in the mindset of, I want to buy a property. Usually they're thinking, all right, I want to buy a house. And my job, like what I've been preaching to our millennial generation over and over again, because it just makes sense. I'm like, okay, you're saying you want to go buy a house, so let's pause on that for a minute. You're already living in an apartment, so let's just kind of think about how much would it hurt to just go move into another apartment, but this time you actually own it and the other units are surrounding it. So then when I start telling them that's like, it's piquing their interest. They're like, all right, well, Jay, how can I do that? You know, how would that even work? I'm like, easy. Traditional funding, the same process that you were gonna go through when buying your house, you're gonna do the same thing. Instead of selecting a single family home that you would call your dream home, you're gonna just take that same energy and you're gonna put that to a duplex, a fourplex. Now, we can't go any higher than a fourplex using traditional FHA, conventional. All of those things apply to these particular properties because you're gonna own and occupy them. You're gonna live in one side or one unit, and then the other units you're gonna rent out. Now, the beauty of this is that you're not doing anything different than you were already doing. You're already living in an apartment. You know, you're already living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but now you just go ahead and move into another 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but this time you own the building. So the good thing about this is that, again, these are for my beginning investors that, like I said, don't have a lot of money to put down, and usually depending on their income, we're able to get them down payment assistance as well. So that way they're going into this deal. Now this deal then turned into an investment deal for them. Not only are they became property owners, but now they're investors because they are actually making money from the deal that from the property that they just bought. So they're going in with minimum amount of money down, 3.5%. You know, they get qualified for FHA. They're going in with 3.5%. They're owner occupying it, so they're living in one of the units. We've rented the other 3 out. Now they're not only just making passive income, but the rental income that they're making is actually paying their mortgage and giving them a return on their investment. So they winning all over the board. So this is a very good strategy. I love this strategy, especially for, like I said, for my new investors, because it's very, very little to no money that you have to put towards this deal. All you have to do is have your credit at a certain level, which, you know, we teach you how to get to that point. So it's never like a no. It's never that you can't do it no matter what your credit is. I don't care if your credit is a 400. It don't matter. It don't mean that it can't get done. It just means that it may not be able to get done today. So we just got to do a little work. You just need a blueprint. You need a blueprint to follow to get you from this point through the next couple of steps to the other point to where we can get you a yes. And that's all it is. So that is the two very, very, very good methods to real estate investing. One, you need a little bit more money on the front end, and it's designed to help you build your portfolio at a rapid rate. The other one is just a little bit slower, but it still gets you the same result, just not as fast, and you don't need as much money up front. But either way, those are 2 strategies that we all should be looking at to go ahead and start our process to financial freedom and generational wealth. Again, y'all, it's your boy Jay Goday, aka Jay the Developer, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.